Peace and love. What up, though? What it do? What's popping? What's cracking? What's happening in time 9, time 10, time 9, time 10 again? Yeah, I'm having some difficulties right now trying to. Yeah, this is really pissing me off. Stay to switch some stuff up on me, so just give me a minute to get it together because this is not. I'm getting very little cooperation on this end to do what I'm trying to do. It's jacking me around a little bit. You know how they do new terms of service, community standards, and this, that, and the third. And it's a little bit more difficult than usual, so I'm just trying to figure it out. Let me see. Make sure I can see what I'm doing. Oh, this is really pissing me off. Keep it 1,000 rituals. Yeah, this is not what's up. New way of doing things. I'm about to give up on this other screen. I'm trying to tell you. Added some updates or whatnot, and yeah, this not cooperating, so I'm done. I'm going to try one more time with my other device and see if it's going to work out for me. You know what I'm saying? But again, um, sending nothing but the greatest of great energy to you and yours and everybody in your circumference. You know, again, I once told a warrior to be careful out here, and he told me, said, no, I cannot be careful. I must be dangerous. See, warriors don't want you to tell them to be careful because they must be dangerous, right? So, you know, that statement alone is evidence as to what we've been going into detail about in this, I guess, a part 3 series, because this will be it on this particular topic for a minute because I have some special guests who wants to come and speak to the people, and based off of their content or whatnot, I'm here for it. You see what I'm saying? Like, I'm 100% sure that you all are going to enjoy, my next guest, right? And as for mañana or tomorrow, I'll be able to give y'all almost like a sneak peek of what it's going to be. And believe me when I tell you it's going to be different because it's going to come from a point of view of someone who, like a lot of the things that I discuss on here, I very well have experience with, right? But for example, I don't feel as though, I lost my warrior spirit. Now I have graduated and become more educated by way of experience and trial and errors with various amounts of data or information, if you will, and tweaking it to the left a little bit and to the right, and messing with the bass and the treble and the other levels to see, how I can get a more favorable outcome, right? Hold on, let me see if this gonna work. I'm still working on it. Yeah, I think this is gonna work, but I think this is gonna work. We about to find out. If nothing else, we about to find out. Let's see. Let's see. 1, 2, 3. Let's see. Let's see. But again, we're gonna have a special guest, who will be going into detail on some things that, for the most part, I wouldn't be able to give you, right? Because I haven't walked those particular shoes. Let's just put it that way. Um, I can't possibly have the experience that, and this is sister. You see what I'm saying? She has some experience on some particulars that, for the most part, or for all of the part, like she's gonna go into detail on some things that again are pertaining to her experience solely, you know, um, with some experience again on a particular topic that I have zero, in all honesty, you see. So I'm looking forward to that. I was able to connect and plug with the sister today to see exactly how we're going to do it. Next time we kick it, we'll figure out when we're going to do it. And the best I can tell you all is don't miss it. Because if you miss it, you're definitely going to miss out. See, this thing is not cooperating with me. I'm about ready to give up. And I don't want to give up. Nothing beats a failure but a try. How you say that? Aunt used to say that all the time. You see what I'm saying? So I'm supposed to keep making more attempts. And I don't know. I mean, if I can't figure it out, I probably need to, let's see, try it again. Let's see if I can stretch it out this way. Nah, that's not what we was trying to do. So do away with that. I think I did it this way, but I'll try it again. See, I hate when they add all these different updates, you know what I'm saying? And create a different way without giving the particulars and exactly, how you're supposed to execute this thingamajiggy. Let's see. Let's see. See if it'll. Nope. 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 And the jacked up part is we was live last night. So I was able to make this thing work last night. And here we are 24 hours later and I'm getting no cooperation. Nope, that ain't it either. That's crazy. That is just crazy. We'll eventually get to the point as to where I can hire some people. Because right now, if you hear like some distortion in the background or whatnot, that's Amir doing something completely different than what I'm over here doing. So, got a couple things going on right now. No, that is crazy. I promise I was able to connect this last night. And again, here we are 24 hours later and it's not working out for me. No, we don't want to follow. We want, let's try this. Let's try this. I know that ain't going to work. Let's see. They say you're supposed to be able to walk and chew bubble gum. You definitely supposed to be able to walk and chew bubble gum. If you don't accomplish nothing else in life, if you find yourself not able to walk and chew bubble gum, I don't know what to tell you. Right? Walking and chewing bubble gum is very simplistic. You don't have to be a scholar to be able to walk and chew bubble gum. Right? Granted, some of us are clumsy, some of us are clumsy, right? I know some very talented, high IQ having people who are clumsy a little bit, right? But that doesn't negate the fact that they are, again, very intelligent, right? And right now, dealing with this tech is making me feel away. I'll just put it like that. Oh my God. Now, how did that happen? It just made me erase something. I'm really done. That is crazy. Oh my God. Man, when they changed the game up, it's for a reason. This reminds me of When they change UCC 1-207 to 1CC-308, you know what I'm saying? That's just an example of, making the people go up the extra mile, or, you know, what was even the purpose of them switching that up? Put it in a thread, please. Please, please, please. I never heard any explanation, for that particular switch up, right? This is crazy. All right, let me try something else. Let me try something else. All right, let's try it like this. Let's see if it works like this. I'm not a quitter. Nope. I'm not a quitter. I'll probably kill the battery on this little device before I quit. All right, let's see if it works like this. It might work. Nope. That's crazy. They obviously don't want me to get this message out, but that's too bad. Wow, this is crazy. Um, uh, man, this make you feel like the kid that passed it. I mean, that failed the spelling bee or the spelling test, and you spelling it correct, right? They're looking for some other type of punctuation from you or something like that. You're like, I'm spelling the word right. What else do you want, right? You want the definition? Hmm. You want the origin of the word, like what it is? What do you want from me? Mm. I'm gonna try this 2 more times and I'm gonna be done with it for sure. No, that ain't it. One more try. Let's see. That ain't it either. Man, let's see. Take this off and put this on and see if it works like that. No. Wow. They got me. They like you was not getting on. I don't know. It keep asking me if I want to move something, and that's not what I'm trying to do. Trying to set this monitor up. Try it like that. Let's try it like this. And this is my last try, y'all. I promise after this, we gonna get here what we came here to do like Red Man. And I know I say that a lot. We gonna get here what we came here to do like Red Man. And it's like, I know 99%, if not 100% of y'all have no idea what I'm talking about when I say that. So let me fill you in a little bit while I'm still making these attempts to make this work out, right? Back in, it had to be 1993. there was something known as a fat jam. Let's go all the way back. I talked about a while back a Fresh Fest. I talked about Fresh Fest one, which I was nowhere near because I was nowhere even near being old enough to be taken seriously when I asked somebody to take me to the Fresh Fest, right? But Fresh Fest Part Two was like Fat Boys, Run DMC, Houdini, Ozone and Turbo. You know what I'm talking about? And my mom took me and my oldest brother Wes. You know what I'm saying? Who is in a wheelchair, so we got special accommodations. Like they brung us. It was at the Joe Louis Arena here in Detroit, which doesn't exist anymore, unfortunately. But they brung us through an entrance called HBO, right? And it was way easier than coming into that particular arena in any other way. Even if you were one of the performers, this is A1 special treatment. You see what I'm saying? Okay, so then after the Fest, they had what's called a Def Jam. They probably had Def Jam 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or whatnot. And later on, they had what they call, when they call like the Fat Jam, I think it was called a Fat Jam, right? And this was Redman, Onyx, Boss, Silk, the singing group Silk. And this was doing Run DMC's last comeback. Down with the King, with CL Smooth, busting a verse on that boy or whatnot. So it was a pay-per-view, right? And doing the pay-per-view, during Redman set, there was a little scrap, a little fight that took place. And after the fight, Redman was like, "Yo, let's get here to what we came here to do." And that's where I got that from. You know what I'm saying? Let's do what we came here to do. So what we came here to do is this. We came here to discuss some of the factors that are effective in eliminating the warrior spirit, right? We can go back into times and we could talk about the various, like we could talk about the Powhatan, right? We can talk about Chief Pontiac. We could talk about even a Shaka Zulu. We could talk about a lot of stuff, right? But I want to deal with this current era that we're in right now, facing a relentless regime who is determined to hold on to peace, God, that's determined to hold on to their power, right? That's determined to continue to control the people, you see, various nation states, if not all nation states, and all of the resources that they can get their gritty little hands on, right? So, being that it's been, even if we just go back 50 years ago and look at various policies that exist right now that didn't exist 50 years ago, right? The people seem to have become so docile. For example, I was just watching a video where there's a brother. He's in his truck, right? And his wife and his two children are in the back seat. One child is not in the car seat because the mother is breastfeeding the child. She's feeding the child, right? So he doesn't have a driver's license. He doesn't have registration or proof of insurance and things like this and that. Long story short, let me push the fast forward button. Long story short is the cops did not kidnap him or steal his car or assault him, meaning bodily search and seizure and things like this and that. And they didn't kidnap him and hold him for ransom. What they did is write him a bunch of citations or tickets, if you will. Okay? And I'm reading the comments. And again, It's very, I don't even have a word for it. I look at comments on these types of videos and other type of videos on Facebook and YouTube, and I see so many racist comments. It don't even make my blood boil anymore. But that doesn't mean I have any less of a warrior spirit. I just come to the conclusion that this they're so accustomed to us being in compliance with their regulations and prohibitions and acts and codes that when you stand on your square and you know law, not only like the cops, they didn't, get all irate with the brother or whatever. They just wrote him a bunch of tickets and told him that, if he didn't show up at court, they were gonna issue warrants out for his arrest or whatnot, warrants to kidnap him, right? Because he didn't, you know what I'm saying? Fall for the extortion movement that they've been doing on us for centuries now, right? But let's talk about these comments. These comments were crazy. Like, yeah, I seen one comment where one of these pale face people was like, yeah, if I was the cop, I would have took him to jail and I would have took his car and made his wife and children get off the car. Like, just real, like, how do you think that you don't have to have a driver's license? And look here, we talked about marriage license and fishing license and driver's license multiple times, right? More importantly, we have unveiled what the word license means, right? Again, a license is a document, right, that gives you permission to do something that would otherwise be illegal, right? So again, let's zoom in and talk about the marriage license, because the marriage license predates a driver's license. Mind you, when cars first came into play, there was no such thing as a driver's license, okay? But again, if you need permission from the state of this and the state of that in order to come into a union with the one who you love or the one who you feel balances you out and y'all can be successful, right? Whether it's business minded or whether it's, okay, this person has particular attributes and I wish to procreate with this individual, you see. So you need permission from the state of Idaho or the state of Michigan in order to do that. Does that make sense to you? But again, you have all of these comments coming from these people who, don't have the hue melanin. They have what they call the pale melanin. How you say that right there? Just steamingly beaming about the fact that these police officers did knock this brother in the head, you know what I'm saying, and endanger his woman and children and steal his car and so on and so forth. Pay attention to these things, right? Know that the first licenses that they made were geared towards giving melanated people permission to do things that they said that, you know what I'm saying, you needed permission to do. How does that sound? You see what I'm saying? Does that sound like you have any rights, or does that sound like some kind of privilege that can be taken away from you at any time? Right? See, these are the things that begin to weaken and eliminate the warrior spirit for many of us. These are things that unfortunately many of us were raised to believe that we need to have or we have to have. It was never explained to us. Somewhere in the source, it got lost. The origins of these various documents got lost as to why your parents or your grandparents or whatever guardian that you had told you that you must have these documents. If you do not have these documents, it wasn't, my mother never said, if you don't have a driver's license, then you are going to be doing something that is unlawful or illegal. That was never said to me. I'm sure the purpose or the very reason that our ancestors, right, and our elders began to get these documents was because they was tired of being knocked in the head, right? They was tired of being kidnapped and held for ransom, right? With that 90 days in jail and or $50,000 fine, starting off with the vagrancy laws, right? And the Jim Crow and the Christian Black codes and so on and so forth. This is why our elders began to try and influence us to get these particular documents, right? Even when you deal with the marriage license, for example, I know initially this was about interracial marriages and prohibitions or whatnot, but we always skip over the fact that without some of these various documents, some of these states were able to confiscate estates or confiscate property and homes and children's because you didn't have this particular document. Therefore, we taking all your shit. See, they can relabel things, they can modify things, but the sole purpose, again, of them creating these regulations was to rob us, right? And steal us and to keep us into perpetual slavery or kidnapping, if you will, for some of us who, are under the, I ain't gonna say under nothing. As you began to educate yourself and you find out that there were already so-called black people over here in North, South, and Central America prior to a Middle Passage or slavery or any of the sort, it does not omit the fact that there were people brought over here from various nations from what we today call Africa, right? Just not in the numbers that we are being told that, you know what I'm saying? For us to completely just say, no, that didn't happen. It didn't happen at all. That's some bullshit. I'm just going to tell you what it is. I was, you know what I'm saying? Never thought that. You see what I'm saying? But various people who I do consider to be scholars, I'm not going to front, you know what I'm saying? Because they hold a lot up under their belt. We'll just put it that way. But with that being said, to just attempt to say that that didn't happen at all, you really, you know what I'm saying? You really fucking up your own credibility because I know where you got the story from, right? I very well know who was the very first respected, peace be upon her, scholar to come out here with that information, you see, right? But even she didn't say the entire story was a fable. She didn't say that, right? She mentioned the fact that if you attempted to bring hundreds of people at a time, and these people even say thousands of people at a time on a ship, first of all, in the middle of that ocean, to my understanding, it's very cold, right? And then we look at the amount of time that trip would have took in order to make it from over there to over here, you see. And then we're dealing with a people who did not have the science of the purification of the water and the preservation of the food to the point to where they weren't even able to feed themselves, let alone they didn't have the science of agriculture and things like this and that. These are facts. See, I only deal with the facts. I don't want to deal with people regurgitating bad information from other people. Because a lie is a lie, is another lie and another lie, and you still have to keep lying. When you are willing to tell the truth, you know what I'm saying? You don't have to try to remember what lie you told or nothing like that. You see? So I don't get into these things. So I don't have to worry about anybody, dampening my spirit, so to speak. Right? When I see policy enforcers or highwaymen or police officers or cops or whatever you want to call them break the law, I don't all of a sudden say, well, we are supposed to do this and you have to have a driver's license and you have to have this, and we were wrong when we were throwing away our Michigan license plates and getting Washita plates and Great Seal plates and UCC plates and going to the Mexicans here on Michigan Avenue in Southwest Detroit and having them duplicate a plate, you see what I'm saying, and put your little UCC one number on it and all of this other shit, right? We were always correct in our stance. So for me to try and backtrack and say, well, doing that is wrong. No. What these various states that has a charter showing you what year that they were established and founded in, showing that they're doing business, right? And if you have rights, if you recognize the fact that you have rights, then you don't have to do business with them, right? And when they yanking our people out their cars and taking their cars and sexually assaulting them, which y'all call a bodily search and all of this and that, and kidnapping them and holding them for ransom, all of that shit is unlawful. It may not be illegal, but it is unlawful, right? And it proves that what they are saying to you is you don't have no rights. You accepted these privileges, and we can take these privileges away from you whenever we feel like it. And that's what they do. So for us now to backtrack and say, well, they own these roads and they built the roads on top of the land that belongs to us. We are the caretakers of the land, right? I understand the fact that we're tired of seeing our people get choked and get tased and get your teeth knocked out your mouth. But understand, we must come together, right? And begin to, the same way we see brothers and sisters out here celebrating the 4th of July and celebrating their Declaration of Independence. But again, when I, show my declarations and my proclamations and my affidavits, y'all look at me like I'm fucking doing something wrong. We have to honor ourselves, right? And we have to stand on our own fucking foundation and stop doing business with the state of, the city of, the county of, and mean it. And more of us have to be active with doing this, because the shit is not going to get no better. They're not going to go from creating millions of statutes and acts and codes to abolishing them. They can have all of the policies that they like, but we have to position ourselves and let our people know that that shit don't apply to us if we don't plan on doing business with them. And that's where we have to be. Instead of cheerleading for them, supporting them, and saying, well, we no longer want to support the Democrats, we're going to support the Republicans. That shit don't work. I explained last night in detail the way that their system works. And I put it in simplistic terms. I didn't even mention anything about de jure and de facto and physical policies and fiat currency. I didn't have any of that discussion. I gave it to you in mundane terminology so that you can over and understand the fact that we keep forgetting shit and we keep having selective memory about this structure that we're dealing with. We think that as the players change, that there's a probability that the game will change. I got news for you. It is not going to change. We cannot change it. We cannot bend it and flex it. You see what I'm saying? And to a form of something that is going to function for us. It was never meant to function, you see what I'm saying, in our favor. But what we can absolutely do is stop doing business with them. Because make no mistake about it, the United States of America is a business. It doesn't just do business. It is a business. It's a corporate entity. It's a nation state, right? It's also a country when you start talking about a democratic republic. But again, standing individual under governmental ordinance department or God, if you will, you have to understand what they're talking about. They're not talking about what you assume they are talking about. Excuse me, which is why they say things like ignorance of the law is no excuse. What kind of shit is that? If the law is common and it makes sense, then why would I be ignorant of it? Well, let me break it down for you. If you're dealing with an entity that is creating over 100,000 different so-called laws on an annual basis, it will be very easy to be ignorant of the law if you are adding 100,000 different ones on an annual basis. Again, if Johnny Cochran was living, he is not aware of all of the millions of so-called laws that these people have on their books. Until there is someone in that Oval Office who balances the books by way of cutting the checks of what they owe us, we have no business wanting to do business with any of their federal entities in their subsidiaries. Period. That is our remedy right there. To fucking cut ties. How many times do we gotta get kicked in the ass? How many times are we gonna sit back and watch them do things like enforce eminent domain to take a land that or homes and businesses that have been in our family for decades, and prior to their arrival for centuries, before we realize again that the players may change, but the game is not going to change. And with that, again, that is not an excuse for us to no longer have the warrior spirit that we once had. Excuse me. It was a time where there were multiple people just alone within the city of Detroit filing land patents, looking for ways to make not just people, everybody is on the functioning with the trust and the beneficiaries and the trustees and all of this and all of that. But when we start using terms like allodial, that's like I'm speaking a different language. Like I'm not even talking English when I mention allodial, right? See, when you deal with real estate agents and you start talking about titles or whatnot, don't dare say deed. We know what a deed is. But when you start talking about the titles to the land or whatnot, they can understand that. But when you start using terms such as allodial, you start talking about land patents, and these are discussions that they don't want to have. And most of them aren't aware of. 90-something%, I will bet a rack on it that they don't even know what the hell you're talking about. There was a time when you had a nice amount of people who were removing the numbers from off of their house, that thing that you call a address. There was a time when you had a nice amount of people here in Detroit who, if they were having any correspondence with any type of entities, they were taking that zip code and they were putting it in brackets, right? Taking it out of the federal zoning codes and all of this and all of that. We had a massive amount of people who were functioning in their starving capacity. Let's just say what it is. I kind of refrain from using that word because it gets a lot of people shaking in their boots. You see what I'm saying? It gets a lot of people to start using certain terms that don't have shit to do with what I'm talking about, right? They start talking about the various movements that utilize the word sovereign and the word citizen in the same sentence, right? Which we don't do. We call that an oxymoron. We've been going over that for over 20 years, as far as my particular generation, who is astute in these particular topics, right? We've learned a lot, again, by way of trial and error, meaning that you cannot be if you don't have a warrior spirit, then you're not going to even be willing to go through the trials and errors that you're going to have to go through in order to have any experience to know what's right and exact and what they stand down on versus you just online saying some shit. There's a lot of people that's on here, whether you would label them as being a scammer or not, they just on here regurgitating shit that they read out of a book or that they saw online, you know what I'm saying, on social media or whatnot. And they're seeing the type of following that they're gaining by regurgitating this information. So they figure that they have carved them a lane, and that's the lane that they gonna stay in, right? But with that being said, if they don't have any experience with utilizing those particular commercial presentments and things of that nature, I don't understand why you would follow them. Talk is one thing, action is something completely different, right? And again, due to the fact that for me, a lot of people feel as though the internet and social media, starting, with some of us with MySpace and Facebook and YouTube and so on and so forth, has greatly assisted the various movements that are about our indigenous, aboriginal, autochthonous national stance. And I'm like 50-50 with that, based upon the fact, again, that a movement doesn't exist by way of the internet. Movements exist by way of being activism, not people running their mouth, not people on here begging for money, not people who consider themselves just solely to be content creators and that's it, not people who lack empathy as to where they'll say and repeat just about anything, and again, in order to gain or keep a following. That was never what any of these movements were about, whether we're talking about Washita, whether we're talking about Great Seal Moors, whether we're talking about Yamasee, whether we're talking about the Nation of Islam, whether we're talking about the Hebrew Israelites, whether we're talking about the Pan-Africans, whether we're talking about the various sets of Moors, right? Who were, again, the very first to be active with these indigenous, aboriginal, autochthonous American movements, right? But again, it was based upon activism, right? I'm a part of the thousands of sisters in North America who didn't sign a birth certificate, right? Who didn't allow her child or skin to be punctured, right? By way of again, giving them immunizations and vaccinations and things of that nature. That's where I come from. I don't come from a bunch of people that do just a bunch of talking and, get on here and do a bunch of scamming. That's not my era. My era was about activism. There are many brothers and sisters who I know of who lost jobs, lost homes, lost properties, lost their children to CPS, right? Because they were not in compliant with what or didn't want to do business, and again comply with the state of New Jersey or the state of New York, right? Or the state of Pennsylvania. So they had their children taken, they had their homes taken, and so on and so forth. But for the most part, these brothers and sisters were using all law or real law versus corporate policies, right? And corporate entities that can only recognize privileges and policies because they are a corporate entity. They're not talking about law because they don't enforce law, right? I don't want to get too technical with these things because I want to focus on what eliminated the warrior spirit. So let's go back historically a little bit, right? And let's talk about some of these wars that our ancestors fought with these invaders, right? With these colonists, with these conquistadors, and so on and so forth, right? Being that war, let's use the mafia as an example. They have rules. The rules is there are no murdering of the women and the children, right? But when you're talking about these pale-faced invaders who they wrote about themselves being cannibals, okay? They were killing the women and the children, which made some of the strongest chiefs and warriors digress. You see, acquiesce. Let's use some more words. Bow down, right? Some would even say cowered up. You know what I'm saying? This, you know, I would rather just fight to the end. But again, you have to take into consideration these people are killing the women and the children. They are burning down the village with the women and the children in the village. They are doing these things. They are sneak attacking. They're doing these attacks while the village is asleep. And again, eliminating the women and the children. This is the kind of warfare that our ancestors had to face. Hold up, y'all. 1 second. 1 minute. Uno momento. All right, we back. So again, we weren't accustomed to this type of savagery. Understand? In today's age and time, let's fast forward to 2025 Gregorian calendar year. We know how they get down now. And unfortunately, with that being said, many of us have decided to go along to get along. Smack my cheek, I turn my face, just smack my other cheek, because I would rather be smacked than to be kidnapped and held for ransom or possibly even lose my life. Right? Again, this is what I mean when I say, why do people lose their warrior spirit, right? Some people would rather not fight and preserve what they think they have, right? Not knowing if these various assets that you hold now will even stand the test of time to even be passed over to your heirs and your descendants. which is crazy to me, for sure. Especially when you're dealing with entities that, let's talk about what they do respect, which is very little, very little, almost to nothing, right? And again, if I'm willing to stand on my square and fight, it's not a matter of them respecting the fact that I'm willing to stand on my square and fight. What's going to happen is you're going to have to defeat me, right? I'm not about to just bow down and give up and let you have your way with me. This, for me, is definitely, I hope my mic ain't making that noise. It is definitely freedom of death, right? Isn't that, well, I don't get freedom today, so I'll wait 10 years or 10 more generations and let the future generations worry about that. So let me find a quick example before I get up out of here of why I even chose to speak about this, because I'm seeing it happen too much. I'm seeing too much focus being put on, and not just focus. I'm seeing support going to areas where it shouldn't be. I'm seeing us not support one another. I'm seeing us continue to fight with one another based off of the propaganda that is being put out here. As an example, like a liberal and a conservative. And people actually choosing a side of a liberal, you know what I'm saying, or a conservative. Again, I told y'all last night, to me, that's like me choosing to be a house or a field Negro. I'm not neither. They both in the way, in those particular characteristics of our people were not beneficial. Tell me what a field Negro did that was beneficial to us. Show me what someone, who you would label as a house Negro did that would be beneficial to us. They both snitched on each other. They both, you know what I'm saying, to a degree were, on some fearful type stuff and so on and so forth. Of course, you had a few who played the role as, you know what I'm saying, the Negro who was in the house to learn some things and to devise a plan to get up out that piece. The same way you had a few so-called field Negroes play the role, you see what I'm saying, and waited till the kidnappers went to sleep and went donuts on their ass. But I'm talking about the vast majority of us. Numbers matter. What people say, I don't care. I don't give a shit. I don't care what you say. I look at what you do. And if there is a massive amount of us in numbers being active, right, then we make things happen that way. Not by what somebody say, not necessarily by a document, although in some cases, I do agree that the pen is mightier than the sword. That's because I don't put the pen to work. There's still work involved with the pen. The same way there's work involved with the sword. You don't just pull out the sword and wave it around. The same way you don't just pull out the pen and wave it around. It don't work like that. But again, numbers matter. Because if you have millions of us pulling out pens and swords, only, follow me, only to let these people know we do not want to do business with you or with it, being the state of, the city of, the county of, and the Fed. Y'all do all the business you want, but you do not have the right to force my people to do business with you. That's all we got, y'all. In honesty, that's all we got. You don't have shit else. Everything you have is taxed, right? That them pretty cars that we got, you know what I'm saying? Without registering it on an annual basis, they try to take it away. When it comes to, and let me go back to the video earlier that I was watching with the brother who didn't have a driver's license and who stood on his square. You see what I'm saying? With his wife and his children in the car. Some of the comments. One of the comments mentioned, well, if he don't have no license and he don't have no car insurance, right? Then what if he hit somebody's car? Or what if he hit a sign and break the sign? Well, the thing about it is, when you are sovereign, you hold all liabilities for what the fuck you do. With that being said, if I'm going to get out here and I'm going to navigate these roads, right? My bread is together. If I damage or injure anyone or anything, I am 100% liable. There's no way you can be out here talking about you sovereign and you broke as fuck. So that was a valid point. But the way that we were taught was you're liable for whatever you do. So again, if you don't have your chip stacked as to where on some just in case, right? Because mistakes happen. You're supposed to have your shit together as to where if I damage something, I'm able to compensate whomever or whatever. I'm not just out here willy-nilly, you know what I'm saying? On some poverty shit, talking about I'm sovereign. It don't work like that. It don't. But again, when we come together in numbers, we're able to create or put fiat, gold, silver, and whatnot together in the pot for not just injuries that are made, but to be able to build, right? The same way the Shoshone and the Cherokee and the Apache and the Chippewa and everybody else does. Out of all of the federal recognized so-called tribes and clans, all of them don't have the exemptions, the same exemptions, I'll just put it that way, or the same amount of non-obligations, I'll put it that way. Some of them are, it's two different words. It's recognized, and I can't think of the other word right now, y'all forgive me, but it don't always go the way that people assume that it goes. All of these tribes don't have casinos and receive federal funds, right? They don't. And the reason why is because some of them actually fought against the union, if you will. Some of them never made any agreements or any treaties with these colonists. So the same way that we were left out of being compensated, so were some of them. They made the decision to stay on their land, remain a sovereign nation, and not ever do business with the USA Inc. With that being said, they ain't out here getting hit in the head and kidnapped and sexually assaulted and held for ransom. Because it is unlawful for any state, city, county, or federal entity to do these things to them. And this is the exact same status that we are supposed to have. That was the point of teaching our people that the vast majority of our ancestors did not come over here on slave ships. It wasn't to teach the people erroneous information. And this is what is happening. And I've been watching this shit go on for the past 2 decades, which is why we are getting farther away from the original intent, the original goal. Because people was out here just lying their ass off, just regurgitating shit that they seen on a TikTok. And I'll be damned if TikTok ain't the damn worst. I don't know how y'all do it. I cannot. And I don't apologize for it. Yes, I'm aware that there is some good information, but for the most part, it's terrible information on fucking TikTok. I'm just gonna say what it is, which is why I don't mess with it. Right? I just don't. It's terrible. It's too much fake information on there. There's too many people not just on there lying and regurgitating a bunch of satire bullshit, but for the most part, some of these people actually believe the shit that they be fucking flipping out their lip. I can't do it. So let me find this video right quick so I can get up out of here. And we can get together and do this again tomorrow and get to another topic for sure. Because I have a point that I want to make. And for the past couple nights, that's kind of it, but it ain't it. I really wanted to look at some of these comments, so we might do a part 4. I really don't. I'm gonna be, in all honesty, I really don't want to do a part 4. Thank you, bro, because I wasn't sure. It's like I'm hearing a little bit of static in the speakers or something like that. So I'm gonna start tapping on the mic, and the mic don't have anything to do with it. So again, in particular too, I was looking at Sonetta over the weekend. He was actually doing a show about the brawl that happened in Cincinnati, right? Which I said I dropped the ball on that because I didn't have enough information on it. Although I didn't try to act like I knew everything about it either. I was actually talking about some other topics. And at the ass end of that bill, I'll bring that up, right? But I noticed there were a lot of people on there. I don't say a lot, a few people making these statements about we have to stop talking about racism. And, what? That's exactly what they want you to do, right? They want you to stop talking about racism and act as if it doesn't exist. So let me see. I got the video. I'm trying to share it with y'all right now. So let me see. Share screen. I want to blow it up. Can I make it bigger? I don't care. I'm gonna say I don't care because I don't. Y'all know I'm a warrior for real. I don't give a shit. And I'm not saying I don't care. I'm saying I was trying to blow it up and make it where you don't see the Facebook icons and all of that, but I don't give a shit. I don't even know if I can rewind it. So I'm gonna repeat what he just said. He's a truck driver, right? And he was driving through Florida. Those that know me, I've already said it multiple times. Florida is the most racist place I've ever lived and visited and vacationed in my life because I've done all 3. I was in Florida during middle school. My mother relocated us from Dey-Twah to Port Charlotte, Florida, Charlotte County, right? I actually started high school my freshman year, ninth grade, at Port Charlotte High School. I told y'all the Ku Klux Klan came to my school and passed out brochures. On this particular day, I was absent. The ancestors be working it, don't it? That particular day, I wasn't there. When I got to school the next day, all of the children were still talking about it, right? And I've shared some other experiences that I have had down there, like my first day of school being down there. I was called color time by a little white boy. I tried to knock his block off. He kept putting his book bag in front of him. So he caught a couple, but for the most part, I was beating his book bag. And I'm a girl. You see what I'm saying? I do not think that I can beat a guy, and never have thought that I can beat a male in a fight. But again, this is going from Detroit, a city that was more than 85% fully melanated, versus me going to a place that is 4% non-white, not 4% black. Hear me. 4% non-white, meaning black, Asian, I don't want to use Middle Eastern, but uh, Arabic, whatnot. People from, the Carib Islands and whatnot. Just a mixture of people made up that 4%. So this again, that's what he said. He's a truck driver and he was in Florida. Let's take it from there.
It was a Thursday. I was driving a 26-foot box truck from Orlando to Gainesville. So I'm between Ocala and Gainesville, but I got to stop and get some gas and get some food or whatever. But I see absolutely nothing as I'm driving. It ain't no houses, no buildings, just road and trees. I finally find this old ass Circle K gas station in the middle of nowhere. An old white lady that was helping me at the counter was sweet as can be, nice as hell. Hey baby, what brings you way out here in these sticks? You just coming to get some gas? I'm like, yeah, I'm kind of familiar with these parts, but kind of not, whatever, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to Gainesville. I'm just shooting through. I'm in and out. She's like, all right, baby, God bless. You have a good one. Get my stuff, go back out to the truck, try to put the key in there and start the truck up. It will not start up. I wait a few seconds, put the key in there again, try to start it up. It will not start up. Don't know what the fuck is wrong. So I call my dispatcher, and my dispatcher tell me to look up under the hood to see if I can figure it out. I'm just like, yeah, okay, whatever. So I say to myself, man, I'm not about to go look up under this fucking hood. I don't know what I'm looking for. I don't know what I'm looking at. I signed up to be a driver. I ain't no damn mechanic. But I'm sitting there for like 20, 25 minutes. So I get bored. I'm like, all right, man, let me just go look up under the hood, see what I can see. So as soon as I get out of the truck, go around, pop open the hood, and as soon as I look down, the lady that was helping me in there comes out in a panic. What's wrong, baby? Is everything
My bad, y'all. I was trying to
okay? Are you all right? I say, yeah, ma'am. I don't know what's going on with the truck. It won't start up, and I don't know much about trucks. I called my dispatcher. I don't know what they're gonna do. They figuring it out now. She was like, all right, well, do you need a tow truck or anything? Do you need an Uber or a taxi to take you closer into town? And I was like, no, ma'am. I'm not allowed to leave the truck. It's a lot of valuables on this truck, and I'm delivering. I can't just leave the truck. I can't just leave it. She was like, all right, I understand. And she goes back in the gas station, but she keep looking at me, looking at her watch, looking at me, looking at her watch. And then she comes back out there and says, well, you don't want to sit up in some hot truck. You can't get it fixed, no AC, and there's nowhere for you to sit down in there. Like, so you're just gonna stand out here and just sit in this hot truck? I say, honestly, man, right now I don't have a choice. I'm just waiting for my dispatcher to hit me back. I say, okay, I understand. My dispatcher called me truck. A black police officer gets out and he asks me what's the problem, asks me what's going on. He assesses the truck and says, "Listen, I'm gonna have to take you somewhere." I said, "I can't leave my truck. Like, what are you talking about? You about to get me fired?" He said, "Listen, I'm gonna have to take you somewhere. Get in the truck." Get in the back of the truck. We driving for about 30 seconds, and I'm like, "Bro, where the fuck are you taking me?" He was like, "Are you familiar with the mall area?" He's like, "That's a good area." I said, "Yeah, I'm familiar with the mall area." He said, "Yeah, that's where I'm taking you." I said, "What the fuck you taking me to the mall for? I can't leave my
So again, we can assume that this particular town indeed had a police department, right? You say it chopped up again. Well, I'm just gonna give y'all the story. This young man is you say the audio stopped working. I'm not surprised, but again, we are all familiar of sundown towns, right? And oh yeah, let me do you one better. Again, this is a young melanated man. He's a truck driver. His truck breaks down in one of these sundown towns. He's not aware that it's a sundown town, and he's at a what do you say, a Circle K gas station or something like that. And the attendant is a older, pale skinned woman, and she's trying to persuade him to leave his truck, which based on the policy of the trucking company that he works for, they don't allow him to leave. So she calls the police in the neighboring town, and the police show up and let him know, look, this is a sundown town. The sun is about to go down. We have to get you somewhere safe, because if we don't, you'll come up missing. Now, this is the police telling him this, right? So this means that this is more than just a jurisdictional matter. If the police cannot stop these neo-Nazi skinhead KKK type people who are in the police department. I told y'all yesterday that you have neo-Nazi skinhead KKK uh, members and supporters who are liberals, and some of them are conservatives. Some of them are Democrats. Some of them are Republicans. They are on both wings of the fucking bird, right? So again, the police take him to some mall area or whatnot, and he stays there. And he, at that point, he gets it, right? Anytime the police fear you losing your life, knowing that they can't do shit about it. Okay, so let's rewind. Let's go back to 1992, right? My mother's in-laws, one of the nieces of my mother's husband, she has a substance abuse problem, right? She is out here on the cocaine, right? On them rocks. And she is, I put it in her words, tricking with these whoever and whatever. And sometimes these truckers and things like that. I guess you could call her a lot lizard or whatnot. You see what I'm saying? Long story short, one of the last nights that I actually lived in Florida, I was driving one of my mom's cars, or I was navigating or whatnot, and she asked me to drop her off somewhere. She was like, "Yeah, this white trick is waiting on me or whatnot," and at that point, you know what I'm saying? I refused to take her anywhere. Long story short, she comes up missing. They find her body on the side of the road some days later. She specifically told me that she was trying to meet up with a, in her own words, white trick, right? And she comes up missing. Now, again, when I say that Florida is the most racist place I've ever been in, I could spend the next hour telling y'all of all the things that happened from age, 13 up to age 17, from us going back and forth and sometimes permanently living there and coming back to Detroit because my mother owned multiple homes and she owned a church here in Detroit. So we would come back and we would live here sometimes, and then we would go back down there and live, and so on and so forth. Like, so many things occurred that us living down there actually made me somewhat of who I am today, because the type of racism that I faced as a youth down there, I never faced up here. Although dealing with Dearborn and Livonia, you see, I faced some racism here growing up, but not to the degree of what I experienced in Florida, right? What I know that happened to others in Florida. Literally, they killed someone that I knew. And when I say they, I'm talking about these racist people who are of European descent, who don't even belong here. Long story short, and to be more right and exact, how you gonna be racist toward the oldest people on the planet? Meaning, anywhere that I go, I'm indigenous, but your people specifically are of German and French and English, Spaniard, Portuguese. We can talk about more as all we want to, but I'm just saying, when it comes to Europa as a whole, or what we call Europe as a whole, that is their designation of nativity, if you will, right? Of national origin, if you will. It is not North, Central, and South America. It is not Asia. It is not what we call Africa. Those aren't their lands, plural. So for them to be over here again in North, South, and Central America and be racist toward the oldest people on the planet, the most ancient people on the planet, being us, is ass backwards. But again, there's so many of our people who have jumped on the bandwagon to support their agendas, to support their parties, to be who are aligned with their policies and shit, that it makes it look as though when we say, well, I don't want to do business with the state of this or the state of that, so I'm going to eliminate these various contracts, I'm going to put these particular documents on record, for the record, let the record show, by way of county records or however you do it. We have our own people going against us, saying that we're in the wrong, not realizing that they're supporting a system that was created to destroy us. These people were given permission to do commerce and trade on this land, not to dictate what your rights are, not to issue us privileges and remove those privileges at will. what we currently see going on within this current administration with things like a big beautiful bill, right? And so on and so forth. To see my own people jumping on the bandwagon and making statements such as, well, there are benefits within this particular bill for us. You motherfuckers are delusional as hell. Again, that individual who sits inside that Oval Office as the CEO, his intent is to make wealthy people wealthier. It has no fucking thing to do with giving any benefits to us. For you to assume otherwise makes you the dumbass. Not me for pointing out the facts. Not me for pointing out the facts that every 4 years we get somebody in that Oval Office who will open up a little gap for some of us to squeeze through. And then 4 years later, as another administration comes in, whether they are of the Democratic Party or the Republican Party, they will close that gap. And then another 4 years, you may get somebody in there who keeps that gap closed. And then 4 years later, you may get somebody in who opens that gap just a little bit for just a certain amount of us to be able to squeeze into it. And then 4 years later, you get somebody who completely closes that gap. This shit has happened before you and I were even born. That particular cycle, for us to have selective memory about the way that they function and do business, it baffles me. I don't get it. I don't get it. The only option that we have is to no longer do business with these people. And this is where our benefits will come in, meaning that there will be no more property tax, no more sales tax. We would orchestrate things such as, for example, if you, like I, have worked for 10, 20, and 25 years of your life already, so you've already paid into the Social Security system, we want all that money now, right? We want all of that shit back now that we put into it. We want our heaven now. We don't want to have to wait to fucking die. You see, right? There are certain things that we would be able to demand. If we find out and the jig is up that their business practice have never benefited us, they have only robbed us. Everything that we put into it by right, whether we start talking about human rights or the rights of a child and indigenous rights, all of these international laws that have been put into place. And peace to my brother Ramsel Eunice, who brings up the right of self-determination that many of these Europeans use successfully because they have the numbers of their own people who support them versus numbers of us following their agendas and falling for the propaganda and hating me for saying the things that I'm fucking saying, hating me for making the moves that, or us for making the moves that we make, right? Or as well, most of what I've done have been tools in order to create generational wealth for my descendants and my heirs. But for the most part, the vast majority of so-called Black people or African Americans or whatever the hell they calling us this year and next year, what y'all have been doing is supporting this system and making and building generational wealth for their heirs and descendants. So which side is you trying to be on? If you fear death, like you gonna die. And I'll hate to use the word die. You are gonna pass over. Your energy is going to pass over, and this flesh and this experience that we having is very well temporary, right? If you are a coward who is willing to face many deaths instead of being a warrior to stand up, where you're going to only be able to take me out one time. You're not going to keep taking me out by way of forcing me to do business with you when the fuck I don't want to. That's what this boils down to. All of these distractions that are putting away. We talking about Diddy. They talking about Bill Cosby again. You see what I'm saying? Then we'll argue about it. Oh, they should let R. Kelly out. They need to let Diddy go. They need to let Tory Lanez out of jail. I don't give a fuck about none of them niggas. Because none of them gave a fuck about you. And I know a lot of people going to be upset with me. I don't care. I don't give a shit about how many scholarships Bill Cosby paid for. Because he paid for a lot of pale, you know what, a lot of pale coochie, a lot of dog pussy. You see what I'm saying? Just imagine how much money he put in their pockets. And we follow all of the false narratives. Oh, he was trying to buy NBC. You know how long I've been hearing that shit? I was hearing that when I was in high school. I was hearing that when his son was murdered. We make up all the excuses in the world for people who kissed the ring, right? This is a man who was hanging out with Hugh Hefner, taking multiple pictures with multiple pale-faced women and showing them the utmost fucking respect. But when it came to his own people, he wasn't so respectful. Those of us who weren't college graduates or who didn't even attend college or whatnot, to us, since we wasn't a part of they little boule shit, we wasn't shit to him. No different than a R. Kelly. I hear people want to bring up the parents of the victims. Oh, they should be in jail with them. The parents wasn't having sex with minors, which is illegal. Again, a minor by law cannot consent to sexual activity. It wasn't the parents who made that choice. Whether the parents put them children in his care, they didn't take. He was the one who did that shit. Let's not forget that he impregnated Aaliyah and got fake ID and married her at the age of 15. I don't give a fuck how good his music was. These are some weak rebuttals and arguments that I see in the support that y'all will give these motherfuckers over supporting causes that we have to stand on. Because if we don't, we will go down in the sinking ship, and have been by design. This shit is by design. This is not by happenstance. It was designed this way, which is why we can see one of our people come up and become multimillionaires or multiple, whether we're talking about Jay-Z, Beyonce, Oprah Winfrey, Tyler Perry, Sean Combs, being that they design this system in a particular way. When they ready at the push of a button to take all of that money and fame back from these individuals, we've seen them push the button. We've seen them push the button multiple times. They want them to follow a particular script. Whether we're talking about Sidney Poitier, married a white woman, whether we're talking about OJ, married a white woman, whether we're talking about Kanye, married a pale face. And what you see them go through, minus, I don't know a lot about Sidney Poitier because that's not in my era, but he seemed to have walked that fine line, right? And when he passes over, let's look at his children. Let's look at who his children, his biracial children, married. All of that wealth will go right back to which it came from. Let's look at the fact that Oprah made it to be a billionaire and did not have not one child. These are things These are repeated cycles that I've been watching my entire life. I don't have amnesia. I don't know what the fuck is wrong with us. I don't. What I do know is that there is a matter of recourse, remedy, resolution. There's compensation or reparations that is owed to us, not just because of slavery. And again, I point you to Dr. William Sandy Darity, right? As well as Dr. Claude Anderson. These are the experts, and I really, really recommend Dr. William Sandy Darity Jr. If you are not aware of who that elder is, you need to type him up on YouTube and look at some of his lectures, and you will get a better understanding of when I start talking about redlining and red summers and eminent domain and things of that nature. This is what they owe us, is to balance the books and cut the checks, and it is not solely based upon slavery. Because again, the majority of our ancestors were already here on this land before any other nation of people, before so-called Native Americans, definitely before the fucking colonists and conquistadors. Again, you see what's on the screen. There's no way that people who carry recessive genes can predate us anywhere on this mother plane. So with that being said, nobody anywhere here predates us in North, South, or Central America, whether we're talking about Europa, whether we're talking about Asia, whether we're talking about Akibulan. Nobody predates us, no goddamn. And if we talking about Antarctica, I don't give a damn where we talking about. If we talking about on this particular mother plane, nobody predates us anywhere. And I'm gonna say this at the ass end of the bill. Hit the like, leave me some comments. Trying to make it my business to do this on a daily basis, Monday through Friday. And like I said, we have a dynamic guest who's gonna come here, right? And she's gonna talk to the people about what she called white obedience. You see what I'm saying? I was very concerned in the beginning as to whether or not it was a good idea to bring her over here. But after speaking to her today, this is a very intelligent sister. Understand? You know, she speaks. She's very articulate. I'll just put it that way. You know, I can be that way. But again, sometimes I express my way. I express myself by way of using profane language, if you will. I begin to speak French, you see. And being that we face so much tragedy, there's so much trauma. You see, we've seen some of the illest things happen to our people in the most inhumane manner. I feel as though none of us should get offended because I use profanity or what we call cuss words. You have to be very soft. I'll put it that way. You have to be more of a cream puff than me to be offended by some of the language that I may use and not be offended by this system's devouring of our babies. Whether we're talking about the GMO food, whether we're talking about the systematic racism or the backward ass piss pole trailer park type of racism. It comes in all different forms, and it's unwarranted based upon the fact that, again, our ancestors built this shit. What can you point at in North America that wasn't invented by one of a melanated person. Now, on paper, it may accredit someone who doesn't look like us, right? Someone else may own the patents to it, but it's no different than Prince and Michael Jackson and various other artists who we know very well they are responsible for the compositions that we listen to, but yet Warner Brothers and Sony and Universal and so on and so forth are the ones who are reaping the benefits by way of publishing and whatever the fuck else. This amnesia that we got, this selective memory that we have, we got to get rid of that shit. And again, I don't have it. I don't have it. I have yet to forget the performance of a Ronald Reagan, of a Donald Clinton, a William Clinton, of a Daddy Bush or Son Bush. I ain't forgot shit. Whether we talking about John Engler as governor here in Michigan, and when we first moved to Florida, him being best friends with the governor of Florida, and I read newspapers still to this day and pay attention to the news since I was a child. I specifically remember moving to Florida, and their sales tax was at 6%. But here in Michigan, the sales tax was at 4%. And I read a newspaper and it said, hey, John Engler is cool with whatever Florida governor was or whatnot. And the idea of raising Michigan's a sales tax to 6%, Engler is seriously considering it. So what is Michigan's sales tax right now? It's 6%. This is some shit that I read in the damn early 90s that came into fruition. They work together. And until we learn to work together and stop supporting them, we're going to be fucked in the game. I'm not willing to cower down and say, I'm going to kill my warrior spirit because my people was pussy. No, we're not doing that. I'm not doing that. I've seen too many of my brothers and sisters who were very warrior-like, right? I've seen them take losses. I've seen them take L's, and I've seen them have some victories, right? But based off of the L's, some of them, a small portion of them, were willing to say, I'm done. I throw my hands up. I'm tired of fighting. Our people won't listen. And I'm tired of me solely getting hit in the head and having to rehabilitate myself and reestablish myself all over again, only to not have any support from my people. Therefore, I'm going to sit back, I'm going to eat my GMO food, and I'm going to enjoy this experience. I'm not about to enjoy shit that I know is detrimental to me and mine. I don't care what they do, right? I don't care what L's I face. It ain't gonna be an L big enough to kill my warrior spirit. The warrior in me will live on as long as I'm on this plane. Period. I understand the fact I hear things like, well, we ain't got no military. I hear all the shit about what we fucking don't got and what they have, versus me hearing the moves that we need to make to obtain these things. Throughout my lifetime, I've always looked at the fruit of Islam as being our military, right? It was told to me that the fruit of Islam were the military for the empire Dug Yamanya of the Washita Nation. That's what I was taught. I don't know what you was taught when y'all start talking about indigenous, aboriginal, or talked in this American movement. But again, we predate y'all. some of the information that y'all need to know, y'all have no fucking idea because you are too busy regurgitating the fake ass information. And with that being said, many of y'all followers are too busy in being in love with the fake information or the information that don't mean shit. We will sit up and argue about whether or not the mother plane is fucking flat or a globe. I don't give a fuck about none of that. Again, as I tell my spouse, I tell him all the time, I don't have a ruler to measure that. So I'm not gonna argue with you and say the earth ain't flat, and I'm not gonna argue with nobody else and say the earth is flat. I don't have that ruler to measure that shit. And many people who promote that shit ain't even never been nowhere. Some of y'all ain't even never been on a fucking airplane to look at the goddamn plane to measure the shit. I'm not gonna argue with you about that dumb shit. What I'm willing to dialogue about are the topics that we discussed tonight and various other subject matter that matters. Certain shit don't matter. Some of us are way too goddamn old to even be entertaining some of the conversations that I see y'all having on the internet or on social media, which is why I'm not as active as I used to be. Again, especially with fucking TikTok get on my fucking nerves. It's so much unverifiable information and shit that makes no sense that people keep regurgitating. Believe me, once upon, like I'll say 18, 19 years ago, I had a map, and where it said the Mississippi River, I crossed that shit out and I wrote the Nile on it. And as I began to expand my horizons, I crossed that out and I wrote Muddy Waters. So this concept about this being the original Tamaray or Egypt and all of that shit, first of all, you got to be a scholar about the situation. If you're not familiar with the Gazette magazine, which were the first to publish the story about what's in the Grand Canyon, like y'all don't even know where this shit fucking comes from. This is shit that I studied damn near 20 fucking years ago. Before it was a YouTube. And if YouTube was in existence 20 years ago, I didn't goddamn know it existed. I had to do detailed research. Certain places I had to actually travel to see the shit. So based off of what some fucking magazine said, right? And somebody who regurgitated the shit, and the fact that there are prohibited areas within the Grand Canyon. And I'm not saying the shit is not fucking true. That's not my point. What you need to know is the origins, the primary source of what the fuck is coming out your mouth. As an adult, that is your responsibility. But again, in this current age, people do not care about their credibility, and I do. So with that being said, I do not fuck with TikTok. Y'all can have that shit. I've said it multiple times. It would take me 35 fucking years to correct most of the false information that's on there. It's a lot of fucking false information on there. Granted, there is some legitimate truth on there. But in comparison to the lies that is on there, I have no use for it. There's nothing on fucking TikTok that can teach me any fucking thing. I'm sure of it. I'm 100% sure of it. Right? So with that being said, if that is a tool that you feel is beneficial to you, I'm going to say this and we're going to end it here. Make sure that you verify that information, please. Don't take that information and try to build up your repertoire or your ego walking around beating your chest, talking shit to me about things that I studied over 2 fucking decades ago. It just, what it does is it shows how fucking mentally unstable you are, how uninformed you are, your lack of even caring about what the fuck you saying. It's disturbing. And it gives light as to why we have such a difficult time coming together and manifesting what we need to manifest as a people as a whole. So think about that. Please, please think about it. And after you think about it and you consider it again, make sure that you are verifying things that you see on social media before you share it, before you regurgitate it, before you form some type of non-scholarly opinion about it, right? Be aware. I need you to care about your credibility and your reputation. The same way people will get upset with me because they ain't study shit and try to clown me for merely giving them the truth. You see, too much of this happens. And it's not like I care because my feelings are hurt or I'm being emotional. No, that's not the case. That's not the case. My criticism is solely based on me caring about us. I wouldn't criticize any of these platforms, any of these content creators, if they wasn't fucking lying to you. Period. If you are just being entertained by some of these individuals, that's different. But for you to regurgitate some of this information as if it's factual, it shows that, you know, I don't know, I don't know if you're just mentally unstable. I don't know if you just don't, again, you just don't care about your credibility. And when you guys are mixing this information with a little bit of the truth and a whole lot of lies, or a whole lot of truth and a little bit of satire information, either way it go is not a good look. Because you out here professing things that we have already put out here that are actual factual. And then at the same time, you running around and you saying dumbass shit like Michelle Obama is a man, or Venus and Serena are. You actually mixing racist satire with actual scholarship. And this is what the fuck TikTok is in a fucking nutshell, right? So this is why I cannot fuck with it. I spent too many years throughout my life killing this pseudo information, killing the racist satire information, and eliminating it from our movements. For me to have to ball up my fist and do this shit year after year, again and again and again, that's the kind of shit that kills a warrior spirit. That's the kind of shit that makes a warrior be careful and not dangerous. A warrior has to be dangerous, not careful. So with all due respect, again, before you push on your keyboard on your phone or on your actual keyboard, before you open up your mouth and regurgitate something that you aren't sure of and you have no proof of, consider the damage that you do to these movements as a whole. Because it ain't just about you. This is not just about you. This is not just about your following and your YouTube check and your IG following and your Facebook, this and your TikTok follow. This shit ain't just fucking about you. You make us all look mentally unstable. You make the truth that has been unveiled by scholars who predate you, you make the truth look like lies because you support so many lies. Stop saying shit that you don't have no proof of. If you just stick strictly to that, don't you say another damn thing that was already circulated and tried and tested and researched decades before you discovered any goddamn thing. You stick to your little lies is what you can do. Then we'll know who you are versus you regurgitating information that the elders put out here. Yeah, that's about it, y'all. Y'all have a good one. Peace.
Supreme.
Shock. Etymology.
They say I'm dope, I said I'm smoke, fire, blowing air, carbon, earth, solid, water, wet. I'm steady beat, a sister soldier that dies effects. So gone with all that hoopla and rah-rah, unless you talking about Atun, Namuna, Amara, pineal glands, all seeing eyes. We call the third eye, we came to build, not pay your bill. Slang municipality, city seals like roadkill, descendants of ancient mound builders. Not supposed to need encyclopedias, genetically encoded with 720. We got amnesia, claiming we Christian cretins in love with Yahweh, Muhammad, and Jesus, but you was living inside of God when you was a fetus. But believers are never